Hi, my name is Jason Highberger, and I'm a CEO of Highberger Enterprises based out of the United States. We focus on new startups as well as management consulting and philanthropic type activities here in Singapore, the United States, as well as other countries. I spend most of my time lately doing nonprofit work for community development through a nonprofit called Warm Heart, based in the US and Thailand. But I also spend time as a board director for Merchu Learning Point, based here in Singapore. Parent company is actually AMP, so happy to be a part of this, this process. So whenever I get involved with the startup, may it be something that is my idea or somebody else's idea, I typically try to understand what role I can best play to benefit the startup. Typically, that has been in I would say a business development capacity, and business development has a very broad definition. That could be from helping acquire new customers, understanding the marketplace, or raising money with investors, and ultimately doing some planning. And so it really kind of depends on where the startup is, kind of in its early life cycle, but also just ensuring from the mix of people that are involved with the startup, how would I best contribute and improve and increase the value of the team. So I would say that that's kind of my first step. As it pertains to social enterprises, I would even consider nonprofits in the category of a startup, because a lot of those nonprofits are very bootstrap type organizations. So it is really kind of somewhat of a similar process as with entrepreneurship. And in those, I really try to focus on looking at causes that are important to me as well as important to my wife. Children certainly is important to us, disadvantaged children as well as elderly, which is why we've been involved with Warm Heart. Merchu Learning, certainly with early childhood education. And so I think that since I align to causes that are important to myself and my family, that also helps me kind of get driven towards helping these social causes or causes with a heart. So a common question that I get asked since I've done business in different countries is, what's the difference? And I would say that over time, I've been involved with businesses for almost 20 years of starting new businesses. I think that the difference is becoming less and less. I think that just with the availability of information, shall we say standardization of startups and entrepreneurship becoming more mainstream, there's less of a difference. But I would say that one of the key differences that I've experienced here in Asia, Pacific region versus businesses in the United States as well as other Western countries is just the risk appetite. And that could be in the aspect of investments. So I've had to raise money here from investors as well as raising money from investors in the United States. And mostly the risk appetite in the United States is much higher. Not exactly sure why that is, because I know that there is new startups being developed here in Singapore, China, Asia Pacific region. That could be cultural driven. It could also just be the personalities of the investors or of the management team. But I would say that that's one of the key differences. I think that the other one that I think that I've experienced, not necessarily on the investment front, but just on the day-to-day activities, development of the business, from the management team down to the operational personnel, is the willingness and actually the energy and excitement of failure. So I'm sure plenty of people have heard of like Elon Musk, as well as other famous entrepreneurs, but they actually look forward to failing because they definitely learned something from that failure. And again, it could be cultural, it could be a multitude of reasons why the excitement, if you will, of failing in Asia Pacific is a little bit less. Again, I think that that's going to continue to shift more and more to being willing to fail and leverage that information and experience to do something better and new. But I would say that that was another key difference that I've experienced in my time with working with startups. In light of COVID, as well as the overall economic situation because of COVID, i.e. recession, resiliency is certainly something that every startup and entrepreneur should be thinking about. I've had recently a startup in the United States that unfortunately did not make it due to COVID. Certainly very challenging for the organization, but from that we made lemonade from lemons, and we took part of that team, some of the ideas that we've been developing within that team, and created a brand new company based on some of those lessons learned. And furthermore, it was a new woman-owned company, which was very exciting because then we kind of shifted it to, again, kind of a social cause type of enterprise. So, you definitely have to be, very creative. You got to be good at problem solving, just like any startup or entrepreneur should. But resiliency is certainly an attribute or a capability that an entrepreneur and startup must have in today's times. So as it pertains to advice for individuals that are looking to do a startup, but also I would say if you're even working within an organization, so entrepreneurship is needed, in both aspects. But if you're looking to build something new, I would say that one piece of advice is to always keep your pipeline full of ideas. I'm sure plenty of people have heard the saying that, that person was lucky or they were at the right place at the right time is why they were successful or why they did that startup. But in reality, more than likely they went through several iterations of that idea. Maybe they had 10 or 15 ideas that they've been thinking about for many, many years, and ultimately one ended up working out. And so, I would encourage any person to always kind of keep your pipeline full of ideas. Pipeline is a concept used in business development, but I think it's applicable for, aspiring entrepreneurs, again, with your own company or if you're working for another company, because I think that keeps the creativity flowing, but it also just kind of helps you, pursue and develop ideas that you perhaps haven't thought of before. With the advent of COVID, doing business certainly has pushed, teams, sales organizations, marketing to digital. So where there was several, conferences or face-to-face meetings, that has now all shifted online. So digital communication, digital engagement certainly has been important, but is extremely important for organizations to adapt to today. I've seen reports about how Google has increased its advertisements or its advertising revenue has increased significantly. Facebook, and that's just the information that has been shared through reports. Every organization is shifting to more digital for marketing purposes, customer engagement, customer support, even industries that traditionally would never think of doing digital type engagement, older traditional like oil and gas type industries are really having to rethink how they do business in today's times.